Hello everyone, good day to you from Nigeria. This is Adelere Adesina, and we are welcome to our coaching clinic for this edition. This is the second coaching clinic we're having in this month, right? Of course for English. So once again, you're welcome to Inner Conversations, how to use the power of your inner conversations, and we are going to be learning deeply about this in the next 30 minutes. So the first 20 minutes are going to be my explanation, especially for the 3 points that I've emphasized we're going to be getting right there. And the next 10 minutes would be for questions and answers, both from the comment and those that have preceded in the chat on the messenger. So once again, you are welcome. Now let's get into inner conversations proper. So first of all, what are inner conversations? Now, how many of us here that though you could hear me right now, you can hear what I'm saying and you're right here on this clinic, at the same time could hear your opinions about whatever is going on in life, such as your opinions about what I'm saying, your opinions about what the clinic could be like in the end, your opinions about what is going to happen after the clinic or what is going to happen in the next 3 weeks. Okay, so you hear me. Alright, you're not saying anything on your lips, you're probably just listening to me. But at the same time, you could hear things within yourself. Those things you could hear, those words, they are inner conversations, inner speech. Alright, so we have them going on every time. We are always speaking to ourselves mentally every time, whether we know it or not. Neville says that everyone speaks to themselves mentally in every waking moment. Okay? But it's, again, the simple example I just gave right now is something you can relate with. You can relate with the fact that though you hear me, you could also hear various words within yourself that I don't hear and no one else in the world hears but just you. Alright, so that is those are inner conversations. Now, we are here to learn the power of inner conversations and how powerful this is to bring about any manifestation. Well, first of all, of course, for the last 7 days, there are many of us who have been on the challenge for inner conversations over those last 7 days. We've learned a number of things. We've been exercising it, we've been using it, and we learned how to use questions to do it. Now, the question I asked earlier actually is such a powerful question that summarizes everything we want to learn today. That question is, how many of us here? So the moment you heard, how many of us here, you come into the moment, right? Your attention is pulled into this moment, and then you begin to listen to what am I going to ask? How many of us here could hear something within yourself, even though you could hear me at the same time? And you would agree that you can, so all of us can, all of us do. So, there are 3 things we're going to be learning in this clinic. The first is how inner conversations generate both faith and doubt, and then how we could use it to make sure that we have faith. Okay, the second is how it is the easiest, in fact, the only way to actually stay in the wish fulfilled, to stay persistent in the wish fulfilled. And third, we're going to learn how to create effective inner conversations. So first, how does inner conversation or inner speech, how do they end up giving us the feeling of faith or fear? It is simple. Now, if you go back to the Coin of Heaven chapter, right, you begin from the beginning of it. Neville says that persistent assumption is an inner effort of intense attention. Now, it said this: to listen effectively, to listen as though you hear, is to evoke, it is to activate. So that is simply it. Whenever you have something going on in your head, you hear it, and the moment you hear it and you consent to it or you listen to it, you activate the state that it is about. So let us look at some common inner conversations that people have. Now, I'm going to be giving both positive and negative. Now, negative doesn't mean bad. Negative only means not the wish fulfilled, okay? And positive doesn't mean good. Positive only means the wish fulfilled. So if a word or a statement doesn't match the wish fulfilled for a person, it is negative. If it does match the wish fulfilled for a person, it is positive. So, let's pick a negative in our conversation, for instance. How could I say such a ridiculous thing to me? That is a negative inner conversation. Now, that is something a person would say within themselves. They may actually be smiling before the person they are saying it to, right? They may be smiling and saying, "Oh yeah, it's good, yeah." But mentally, they are saying, "How can he be saying such a ridiculous thing to me?" Okay, now the moment they hear that and they consent to it, that is, they agree with it, they feel disappointed, or they feel ridiculed, or they feel upset. That feeling emanates immediately from the moment they consent to those words in their head, right? So that is how inner conversations drive feelings. As a matter of fact, all feelings that we ever have, of whether excitement, of the feeling of confidence, the feeling of joy, thrill, and so on and so forth, they all come from inner conversations. So you read, and I put a text in this and the description for this live video, Romans chapter 10 verse 17, that faith comes by hearing. Now, faith is feeling. So faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And God is your imagination. Your imagination is the Almighty God who created the heavens and the earth and everything in it, and is creating every single experience of your life. Alright, so faith comes by hearing. And what hearing is that? Not the words that I'm saying right now, but the words of God. Hearing comes by the word of God. So, and the word of God is your own inner conversations. Those are the words of God, because the only being within you that speaks and that could hear all that it says is your imagination. That is the only being within you that can do all that, right? That can call the things which are not seen as though they were. So when you hear anything that you say internally, you develop the feeling either of faith or of fear, either of having or of lacking, just based on what that word or what the speech is saying. So the person says, "How can they say such a ridiculous thing to me?" And that is negative, because they don't want to feel ridiculed, right? But they go on feeling ridiculed, and then they begin to maybe take actions on that and so on and so forth. But the rest of everything they do, following that inner speech of "how could they say such a ridiculous thing to me," the rest of everything they do, whether they try to prevent being ridiculed, or whether they put systems in place to not be ridiculed, or whatever else they might do, actually gets them ridiculed. That's the funniest part of this. They are compelled from that moment on, and the world with them is compelled to ridicule them. How about a great inner conversation, such as, "How can they treat me so nicely?" Yeah, how did I end up being treated so nicely? Okay, that inner conversation, what does it imply? That's the key word, implication. What does it imply? That how could they treat me so nicely? It implies that I got such a nice treatment that I didn't even expect, beyond my expectations, right? Beyond my rational, intellectual expectations, or beyond what I think I deserve. So if a person says that, and they hear that, that is all mentally, by the way. If they say and hear that all mentally, the next thing that happens is, in their mind is triggered, "Oh yes, I am being treated nicely." They feel being treated nicely. They feel pampered. They feel loved. And what happens as a result of that is they are compelled from that moment. Even if they try to do things not to be treated nicely, it wouldn't happen. They are compelled from that moment to be treated nicely. And so does the world around them. So Hebrews 11 verse 3 says that by faith we know that the things which are seen are made from the things which are not seen. That the whole world is fashioned from the word of God, so that the things which are seen are made from the things which are not seen. And that it is referring simply to your inner conversations. So inner conversations are this powerful. And now we know that they generate faith, and they generate any other feeling that is not faith, just because we listen to them. Mentally listening to them. Now at the moment you hear me, again I'm repeating this, you hear me, you hear everything that I say, you probably are saying one or two things to someone else about it, but you can also hear within yourself opinions, suggestions, advice, various things that you think or feel this is all about, that you feel or think should be done, should not be done, is right, is wrong, and so on and so forth. Now, let me also emphasize this. There's a difference between inner speech and thoughts. I mean, intellectual thoughts. Intellectual, behavioral thoughts of what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Okay? I should go out. Should I call him now? Should I not call him now? All of those are their methods. They have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what happens to you. Your inner conversations are not action thoughts. They are state thoughts, okay? State thought means they are only describing world as is. Such as, how could they ridicule me that way? Is a state thought. All about, how did I get so lucky to be so treated nicely? It's a state thought. If you look at those questions, there is no suggestion of what I'm to do or not do. It is just a description of what is, or a narration of what is. And that is what makes an inner conversation. Alright? Now, we call it an inner conversation because there is also a listening, right? There is the speaking, you hear the voice, but there's a listening, which is what evokes the feeling. When you listen to it and you agree to what you listen to, that feeling of faith, of lack emanates. Okay, that said, let's get to the second point now. And the second point is, how does inner conversation lead to persistent assumption? It is simple. And for all of us who did the exercise, the 7 days exercise, we can relate to this. Now, of all the various things you can do with your imagination, the one that you do every time, with or without your deliberate awareness, and that controls everything else that happens from that moment on, is your inner conversations. Okay, let me put that again. The first thing that you do with your imagining is always your inner speech. Okay, then your inner speech is in charge of your unconscious imagining. It is always the one in charge of what you are imagining unconsciously. Okay, so for those of us who did the exercise, the 7 days, what you realize is this: as you persistently repeated that inner conversation, only mentally, by the way, this is not something you say on your lips, it's not an affirmation, it is all said mentally. Now, as you repeat that again and again, you find yourself having dreams of your wish fulfilled. Wait, dreams you've never had in maybe 3 months or 5 months or 2 months or maybe even 2 years of imagining, of trying so hard, of affirming and all of that. Just your mental repetition of the wish fulfilled brings about the dreams. Why? Your dreams are your unconscious imagining. They are actually within you in your imagination, and that's where you experience your dreams from, right? Now you have controlled your inner conversations and they control the dreams. So dreams are your inner conversations pushed out or made visible, okay, for you to observe or for you to experience within yourself. And in this physical world we see around us is your inner conversations pushed out for you to experience on this level. So let's see the relationship between the three then. Your inner speech, your imaginings, or especially dreams, and this physical world that we have here, objective world, 3D, whatever you call it. So your inner speech is like gas, right? Like steam, okay? Your inner speech is like steam. And your dreams are like water, all right? Then this physical world we have here is like the ice, right? That is frozen. Now, if you read any other lecture of Neville on your inner conversations, you would see him say this, that your inner speech, the world around us is our inner speech frozen. Actually, in the Coin of Heaven chapter that you've been reading in the last few days, you would see Neville said the same thing. It says that this world is our inner speech actualized. Actualized. Okay? So our imaginings, our unconscious imaginings, they are our inner conversations pushed out in a slower form. So if you slow down everything that you're mentally saying, you would actually see forms. You would see imaginings. And if you slow that down further, you would see your physical experience here. So there is a straight path between what you are saying inwardly and what you are experiencing outwardly, which Neville said that the moment you match your imagining to your inner speech of fulfilled desire, you're going to have a straight path from within to without. So your manifestations become sped up, they become fast or instant, which is why some of us in the last 7 days have manifested the things that we wish for just by the exercise of our inner conversations. We've manifested, and I've seen many people who have manifested a lot. Those who share on the group, those who post on the messenger chat, those who post to me personally, and those who don't even post it at all, but they see it. Okay, So your inner conversations go on every time, and it is the one way that you can uniquely stay in the wish fulfilled without having to sit down to do your SATs, or have to sit down to write your gratitude list, to do your journal affirmations, or any other thing. It is the one way that you can always stay in the wish fulfilled. Let me put that again in a different form. So when you have, okay, now you're listening to me, and you're having opinions of what I'm saying, or opinions of what you're going to do next, that I don't hear, and no one else, no matter how close they are to you, no one else hear you saying these things. Only you hear yourself saying them. All right? Now, those things that you are saying, if you only take the moment to make sure they conform to your wish fulfilled, they are going to manifest whatever you wish for. That's it. So listen, again, you're already saying these words. You're always speaking. That means without effort, if you direct what you're saying inwardly to your wish fulfilled, you get it. That is persistence. All right, so how do you persist in the wish fulfilled? It is simple. Make sure that your inner conversation matches your fulfilled desire, and then mentally rehearse it every moment, every time, as much as possible. Not as if all 24 hours of a day, right, 7 days of a week, but most of your 24 hours, most of the thoughts you're having in your head should be from that fulfilled desire, from that inner conversation. Okay, so let's say my inner conversation is, how did I get so lucky to have such a wonderful house, right? And I'm talking to you, and you hear me, I'm saying all of this. Then for a moment, I'm thinking, what am I going to do next after this call? That moment when I think it, I could just go, that same moment I could use it, invest it in the thought, how did I get so lucky to have such a dream house? That's it. That job is done that moment. Now, I don't have to make sure that I see it, but if I actually relax myself, I would really see that I see things. I see people that are listening to me. I see maybe the dream house itself, or I see anything. So if I slow down myself, I would observe my inner conversations projected in my unconscious imagining. Okay? So you persist in the wish fulfilled. And this is the answer to that question, that how do I persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled? How to persist in the feeling of the wish fulfilled is simply by repeating, mentally repeating your inner conversations. When you mentally repeat your inner conversations, you're going to have the feeling, because when you hear it, you feel, right? That's what we started with. When you hear something, you feel. If you hear something great, you feel amazing. If you hear something that is doubtful, you feel distrustful. If you hear something that is crooked, you feel just the feeling comes from what you hear. So if you allow yourself to hear the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you're going to have the feeling of the wish fulfilled without having to imagine it. And people are just going to see you wondering what is going on with you, and you know what you're doing within yourself. Everyone knows what they are doing within themselves. You think no one in the world hears you when you're having your inner conversations. You think no one hears, but the most important person hears you. And that brings us to the next point of our inner conversations lesson this day, and it is how to construct excellent inner conversations. Now I'm going to mention just two, and I'll do that in maybe 3 minutes. Okay, so the first is questions, which all of us have been using in the last few days. Questions evoke attention. That is the reason why we use the question. For those of us who have asked, why did we use questions and not maybe just straight affirmations like I'm wealthy? Why did we use the question of how did I end up being so wealthy? The simple answer is that questions evoke attention. Every phrase that can evoke attention in you is effective for your inner conversation. 1, 2. Every phrase that is natural in a conversation is effective for your inner conversation. Now, when you say a question such as, how did I? You are listening. Okay, the moment I said, at the beginning of this lesson, the moment I said, how many of you listened? No matter what you were thinking in the world, you listened. You wanted to know what the question would be so that you could guess. If you have the answer, then maybe you could suggest the answer. If you don't have the answer, then maybe you could listen to what the answer would be and learn it. And in fact, we all listen to questions to the point that even when we don't know the answer, we still want to answer it. Right? So that is where questions become effective. But not just any question. Remember, every inner conversation that is effective is always from the wish fulfilled. It matches the wish fulfilled. Now, people ask questions every time. It's not that we don't have, I said that we are all mentally speaking to ourselves. That means at the moment, and even after this moment, and every time you are saying something. So let's say you want your dream house, and then you're constantly saying, how am I going to get the money? Who is going to sell it to me? Where is it going to be located? And so on and so forth. Okay, all of those thoughts, all of those questions, they are inner conversations. Are they of the wish fulfilled or not of the wish fulfilled? Apparently, not of the wish fulfilled. And that is why we keep stuck in 3D and we keep having the doubt. How about you change them? Such as, how did I get so lucky to have such a wonderful house? How did I get such a fair rate on it? How did I end up having so many people to celebrate it with me, to celebrate the maybe the housewarming with me, and so on and so forth? Questions that imply you already have the house. When you ask such questions, they are evoking your attention and accepting the assumption that you already have the house. Okay, another way that we do inner conversations like this is suspicion, right? We suspect what people are going to say, do, and so on and so forth. Now, early on in the challenge or in the exercise, I saw some people talking about intuition. I'd like to just mention to you, there is no outside God or some bigger force or universe that is passing some message to you in your intuition of what would happen in the future. It is your own inner conversations, unknown to you, that is creating the future. We call it pre-knowing, and we like to feel we pre-know because okay, no one else knows this. I just know that he's going to do that, and then he did it. Or I just know that's going to happen, and then it's happened. Alright, but really, it is your inner conversations. So I'm going to encourage you to use your suspicions well. And people use it these ways. I mean, for instance, a common suspicion is, why are they looking at me like that? Do they want to take my money, right? Or why is he smiling at me? And then the moment, why is he smiling at me? Does he want to steal my money? How about change that to things that are so loving? Like, why are they smiling at me? Have they secretly known that I'm the latest millionaire? Right? So you suspect something wonderful. You sort of know, I just knew she's going to call me and tell me, how are you today? I just knew he's going to give me the money. I just knew that the money would come through. I have a suspicion of the thing that you wish for. There is no intuition of some outside God. There is only one being who is speaking within you, and he is yourself. And the things that it says, in fact, I think this thing we call intuition is a very wonderful way for you to know the power of your inner speech. How that if it is not matched with any resistance within you, it externalizes itself in a very short period of time, with or without your conscious effort. Okay, so that would be everything on inner conversations. Now, do we have any question? Let me see if I could see the comments, right? Please put your questions in the comments. And of course, there's a question here of persisting in the feeling is great, but do we have to persist in affirmations too? I mean, once I have visualized, it is done, right? Then why keep affirming? Wouldn't it be enough to persist in the feeling alone and let it materialize in 3D? So Kiran asks that. Now, the answer is this. Back in the chapter, The Queen of Heaven, Neville said this: persistent assumption of the wish fulfilled is the means of fulfilling the intention. As we control our inner talking, matching it to our fulfilled desire, we can lay aside all other processes. Then we simply act by clear imagination and intention. We imagine the wish fulfilled and carry on mental conversations from that premise. So Neville equates inner conversations to persistent assumption. So how do you persist in the feeling? Remember, when you hear it mentally and you accept what you heard mentally, the minute you accept it, the feeling is evoked within you, whether you know it or not. You feel. If you heard, she's going to send me the money, you feel, okay, when is she going to do that? You feel the anxiety of when. But if you heard, she sent me the money, you feel the peace, the relaxation of, oh, I got it. Okay, so how do you persist in the feeling? Just by making sure your inner conversations match the fulfilled desire. That's all. Now, I'm not able to see the comments yet. Let me see. I really don't see the comments, and I know that some of us would have questions, but I really don't see the comments. So I'm so sorry about that. So what I will do is after the conversation, after this clinic rather, I'm going to take the comments that you have where the questions are, and I'll answer them. So one powerful way to use your inner conversations is right as you're falling into sleep. Okay, just have that speech going on in your mind, and then imagine your wish fulfilled. So maybe you want a new car, right? Imagine the car is parked in your garage. Then have the inner conversation going in your mind of you saying, I just love the color of this wonderful car. Just that. I totally love the new color of it. And as you do that, you're going to enter into the feeling of your wish fulfilled of that car and fall asleep in that state, which is why I recommend that you learn states akin to sleep, or that you master it using that that workbook that I sent the link earlier. So when you do that and you match that with your inner conversations, Neville says there is a straight path between you from where you are to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, or to your externalized desire. Okay, that is something I'd like to emphasize. And also, let me emphasize something else in the exercise. I asked all of us to do this. Now, listen, the exercise that I gave is not something you have to script. It's not for scripting, even though I said you should write it down. It is simply for you to be able to memorize, mentally rehearse. Now, you go back to Inner Conversation, the Coin of Heaven chapter. Neville says this within the first paragraph itself. Neville says, speak in imagination only the wish fulfilled. Speak in imagination only. That's it. So I know maybe you've got a background with affirmations and journaling and scripting, and all of that is great. I don't say it's not great, it's great. However, if you want to apply inner conversations, the word inner in it means within, right? So what you do is simply write it down. Okay, when you write it down, then you mentally rehearse it. That is, all this before you to read something within 15 words, maximum 20 words, no more than 20 words. The highest I have seen of any Neville's inner conversation that you could do is Robert Millikan's affirmation. I have a large, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. It is 18 words. 18 words. Okay? Otherwise, you just have I'm wealthy, I'm healthy. I remember when this was an empty lot. All of those are very short. Okay, so write it down so that you can read it as if you're rehearsing for some music or for some musical and all of that. And then once you do that, mentally rehearse it. Mentally keep the practice on. Even as we're talking right now, later on, as whatever you might be doing, whether you're doing the laundry, whether you're chatting with your friends, no matter what, and especially as you're falling asleep, the last thing you want to have on your mind is your inner conversation. Be consumed with it. It is effortless, but at the same time, it takes discipline to actually do it at first. So, can inner conversations help letting go of the wanting of the desire? Yes, not only can it does that ultimately. It may take maybe 1 day, 2 days. For some people, it is instant, but it may take 1 day, 2 days. I know someone who said 10 days of practicing, then I get this. All right, but ultimately, it is going to happen. And it is the only way you can be sure that you're going to make that happen. All right. So anyways, thank you everyone for being here. Okay, I see a couple of questions on how many desires can you have? Yeah, you can have as many. But I said that start with one. Now, the reason for starting with one for maybe the next 5 to 7 days is so that you can build the discipline it takes in the first place. The focus it takes. It is quite a task when you're just new to this. Quite a task. So start with one desire and consume yourself with that one desire for the next 3 to 5 days. Then after you've at least experienced that desire in your dreams, you are either going to experience it in your dreams or manifest it directly. So the moment you experience it in your dreams, you can now expand to 2, 3, 4 other desires. But start with one. All right. So Yeah, the recording is going to be available after this. The replay is going to be available after this live video. All right, so we've come to the end of this, and until the next coaching clinic, I look forward to your success stories, because I'm very, very certain that there are so many wonderful success that you're going to have with this. As a matter of fact, this is the only way I live right now, inner conversations, imagining, and that is all. So I wish you the best, and I'm sure that you're going to skyrocket your success, your manifestations. But most of all, as anyone who has really done this, the beautiful thing that you get out of it the most is you now realizing that the power to get anything, the power to have anything you want, is truly within you. All right, until then, bye bye.